I'm Meghan Anderson Doyle. I'm the Costume Design Associate for the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. I started in this role in 2006, and prior to that, in about 1998, I worked in the wardrobe department and in the education department with their design summer program. I was really fortunate when I was in high school. There was a career fair, and the Denver Center was involved in this career fair, and I got the opportunity to work with the wardrobe department here. And so I really got a first-hand look at how shows are built, how they go up, and how many people it takes to make that magic happen. And I had done drama in high school and loved it and knew I wanted to study theater in college, but I think that internship experience really kind of like sealed the deal that I wanted to do costume. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of sparked it. And I was able to work in the costume shop in college and design shows for our university. And that was kind of the space that it all kind of came together, that storytelling component.
Yeah.
I feel like the first costumes I designed were definitely like for my Barbies as a kid. My grandmother taught me how to sew and how to cut out pieces of fabric and make them into dresses. And I was like dumbstruck. I was fascinated that people got to do this and, loved Halloween and loved dress up. And so it all kind of just came together with my love for theater and my love of costume kind of grew together. But yeah, definitely since I was a little kid, I've always loved playing dress up and with Barbies and things. Oh the process for designing a costume starts usually 6 to 9 months before our show. Mm-hmm. And so the designer and the director have really deep conversations about who these people are that we're going to see on stage and what we think they look like. And so sometimes we know casting beforehand, so you know that what your actors look like and kind of their body shapes and who, to kind of expect, and you can design around that. And sometimes you don't know, so you just kind of have to design these people in your brain. Mm-hmm. Then there's a ton of research that goes into it, and then we render the costumes that we like. And once the director and designer kind of decide what they like and who these people are, we involve our costume shop, and that has a draper or a tailor, and they will help figure out how to take that 2-dimensional rendering and make it into a 3-dimensional garment. They have first hands who help lay out and cut out the pattern, and then they have stitchers who stitch it together. And then we also have a crafts department that works on distressing fabrics, dyeing fabrics, building hats, working on shoes, belts, things like that. And we also have a wig department, and they help create our facial hair and wigs for our characters. So there's a huge team of people that go into creating these garments and these pieces, and we have fittings on those, and then they go across the street for performance, and our wardrobe team takes over and makes sure that our actors are wearing the right costumes at the right time and that they're pressed or wrinkled, however they're supposed to look. So there's a huge group of people. The design process is 6 to 9 months before the show. Our builds here at the Denver Center are anywhere from 6 weeks on the long end to 3 weeks on the short end. Specific garments, we can sometimes start beforehand and we'll take the full 6 weeks to build. My favorite part of the design process in starting a new project is always the rendering. I love kind of compiling the designer and director ideas with research and really kind of starting to put it together and see that character begin to develop on the page. I think costume design brings that human element to a production. I think clothes are something that we as people inherently understand, that you choose to wear something to reflect a certain mood or a certain place. And I think it's something our audiences can get really excited about, that they can either connect with and understand why that character made that choice, or they can kind of see something in themselves in those garments. And I think it's a really fun way to kind of see one more side of someone's personality.
Yeah.
I feel like my research process is similar for all the shows I do, whether they're contemporary or period. I definitely love Pinterest. I feel like it's a rabbit hole of images, and you can find great color schemes for historical pieces and really great museum research to kind of spur the next part of your search. I love books. I love the library. I feel like that's one of the places that's fantastic, that you can kind of get a solid understanding of what these garments are and not just be kind of on this wild goose chase on the internet. I I love the internet because it's a great place to see like what other theater companies are doing and how did they tackle this interesting character or time frame. So I feel like I look at research images of clothing and things like that. I always look at paintings and advertisements and things like that from the era to kind of help get a feel of what the overall mood should feel like. But yeah, so if it's contemporary or historical, it's definitely kind of the same starting points. Let's see. I think one of my favorite pieces that's in the exhibition now is the dress from American Mariachi. That show was a world premiere here, and it was full of wonderful people and told the story of the community that I grew up in and the women who were important to me. So it was really close to home and a really fun project to work on. I think one that I learned the most on was a play called Sweet and Lucky, and it was an immersive piece that we created in a warehouse. And so we had an assortment of different actors that had different tracks that took groups of people around. It had a pool, and our actors had to get in the pool. Each one of them got in, I think, 3 separate times. And so we laughed that we had to do underwear math to figure out how many pairs of underpants each person needed so that they could be dry and comfortable for their next scene. Yeah, it was just definitely like a completely non-linear way to think about a play. And that was not something that I had really done, but it was really exciting and a lot of fun to do with that group of people. A piece of work that best represents me as an artist. I don't know. I mean, it might just be my portfolio. I love all of the different shows I've been able to be part of. And I feel like I try to adapt my rendering style to suit that show. So I love that, like, the renderings I did for our children's show right now are kind of cartoony and illustrative, and that some of the others have more of a historical bend to them. So I guess it'd be my portfolio. I don't know if that sounds hokey, but yeah, I think there's definitely shows that I love, and a part of that is coupled with the actors or the drapers or the team that we worked with that make it special. And then there's some renderings that I love that were not a great experience outside, but you know, I love that visual. So yeah. My biggest challenge with a garment, let's see. I think I handle most of my biggest challenges by relying on the team that we have. We're so fortunate to have so many great minds in this building that when you run into an issue, you kind of have this array of people with this vast experience that you can kind of pick their brain and say, how would you handle, or what's the best way that we can tackle? And you never feel like you have to solve something on your own. So I think that's definitely leaning on your team is the most successful thing for me. Yeah, the designs that work on paper versus on stage happen all the time. I know that we've had shows where you kind of design one thing and then the choreography doesn't allow for that to happen. So you have to make adjustments. And again, that's where you kind of rely on your team where you're like, can we change this garment enough, or do we need to just kind of scrap this component and start fresh? Sometimes it's color. You love one color and you render something and then the actor or the director doesn't like it. And so, yeah, there's definitely some flexibility that has to come with the process for sure. Pieces have to kind of come together so that you get this beautiful stage picture and not just 3 separate elements that kind of exist in the same box. I hope that when people walk through the exhibit, they get to see all of the intentional, thoughtful design choices that we make, and that it takes a full team of people to realize this vision, and just how exciting it is up close as well as on stage. I think that's kind of the fun part we don't always get to share.